The scalpel's edge caught the fluorescent light like a promise of mercy, slicing through the haze of morphine that had cradled me for days. "Wyatt," a voice cracked like thunder in a summer storm. "Don't you dare leave me here alone." But when my eyes fluttered open, it wasn't the surgeon's face hovering above me, it was his. Vince? The ghost I'd buried in a bottle of bourbon 2 years ago. Now flesh and bone. His calloused hand gripping mine as if letting go would unravel the universe. I wanted to scream his name, to shatter the beeping monitors with the weight of everything unsaid. But all that escaped was a ragged whisper, "Why? Why are you here?" The rain hammered against the hospital window like it was trying to drown out the truth we'd both been running from. Mary's in downtown Chicago. November's chill seeping through the cracks of this Midwestern fortress, where the wind off Lake Michigan howled accusations at anyone foolish enough to love in secret. I'd crashed my truck on the Dan Ryan Expressway 3 nights ago, black ice. But I knew better. It was the ghosts in my rear view, the ones with Ethan's blue eyes and that crooked smile, chasing me down at 80 miles an hour. He didn't answer my whisper right away. Ethan just sat there in the vinyl chair pulled up to my bedside, his flannel shirt rumpled like he'd slept in it for days. Jeans faded from too many harvests on his family's farm upstate. At 35, he looked every bit the Illinois heartland boy who'd traded tractor keys for a badge, Deputy Sheriff Ethan Hale. The man who'd once pinned me against the barn wall under a harvest moon and kissed me like the world was ending. His face was a map of regrets. Lines etched deeper around those eyes that had always seen too much. "I'm here because I can't not be," he finally said. Voice low and gravelly. The kind of Midwestern drawl that wrapped around your ribs and squeezed. His thumb traced a slow circle on the back of my hand, the one not wired to N4 drip, and it burned hotter than the accident's wreckage. What? Jesus. When I got the call from the state police, I thought, "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended, slicing through the beeps and hums of the room. Pain flared in my side, ribs cracked like promises, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. "You don't get to swoop in now. Not after you chose her. After you chose everything but this." His jaw tightened. That familiar tick I'd memorized in stolen moments, the way it pulsed when he was fighting a storm inside. "I chose wrong. Every damn day since. But seeing you like this, it rips me open, Wyatt." Like that night in the motel off Route 66. When we finally said we'd walk away from it all. We hadn't. That's the knife twist. 2 years ago, under neon signs flickering like faulty stars in a Joplin, Missouri dive, we'd mapped out a life, Chicago for me, with my freelance photojournalism gigs capturing the grit of the Rust Belt, the farm for him, but weekends tangled in my loft apartment, bodies and breaths sinking like we'd been built for it. He was the steady pulse to my chaos, the guy who'd pull me from a bar brawl with a quiet, "Then if, darlin'," and make love to me slow under threadbare sheets, whispering futures we both pretended we could claim. But Ethan had roots deeper than mine. His father, Big Tom Hale, the kind of man who quoted Reagan at the dinner table and eyed any city boy with suspicion. And Sarah, his high school sweetheart, the one who'd stuck around after he came out to her in a tear-soaked confession last spring. She'd forgiven him, or so he said, because love like ours don't bend easy. They'd stayed married for the kids, 2 boys, ages 5 and 7, with Ethan's nose and her golden curls. Collateral damage in a war we never declared. I'd walked away first. Or so I told myself. Packed my Leica and my ghosts. Hit the road chasing stories from Tulsa oil rigs to Detroit's abandoned factories. Anything to outrun the way his absence echoed in every empty motel bed. But fate, that cruel American storyteller, had other plans. A wrong turn on a slick highway, and here I was, pinned under starched sheets, with the man who'd broken me holding vigil like a penance. Tell me what happened, he murmured, leaning closer, his breath warm against my knuckles. The scent of him, pine soap and faint motor oil, hit me like a freight train, pulling me under. I closed my eyes, letting the morphine blur the edges. Black ice. Truck flipped. Paramedics said I was lucky, internal bleeding patched, concussion fading. Out tomorrow. If the docs sign off. A lie by omission, the real story was the flask in the glove box. The way I'd floored it past a semi? Imagining his truck pulling up beside me one last time. TXL? A sound like defeat. Lucky. Yeah. His free hand hovered near my cheek, then dropped, as if touching me there would seal some unspoken vow. Why? I filed papers last month. Sarah knows everything. About us. She said it's time. The room spun, monitors spiking in protest. Time? After I'd rebuilt my life in fragments? After the one-night stands in dive bars that tasted like ash because none of them were him? Bullshit, I rasped, yanking my hand free. The four tugged, a sharp sting mirroring the one in my gut. You think a signature on a form erases 2 years? The nights I waited for your call that never came? You sat in that kitchen, playing daddy, while I... Stop. His voice broke, raw as a fresh wound. He stood, pacing the 3 steps to the window, silhouetted against the sodium glow of the city. Chicago sprawled below, a beast of steel and secrets, the L train rumbling like a heartbeat. You think I didn't feel it? Every harvest. Staring at the combines, wondering if you'd ever come back. Every time Sarah touched me, it was your face I saw. And it gutted me. I wanted to hate him. Good. I tried. But the truth was a tide pulling me under. I'd loved him from the first dive bar glance in that Peoria roadhouse, when he'd bought me a whiskey neat and confessed, over the jukebox crooning Johnny Cash, that he'd always known he was different. We'd built something real in stolen hours, lazy Sundays in my Wicker Park apartment. Him frying eggs while I shot Polaroids of him shirtless against the brick wall. Sunlight gilding his scars from a childhood fall off the barn roof. Laughter that echoed like freedom. Touches that spoke louder than words. But love in the heartland ain't a fairy tale, it's barbed wire and Bible verses. When Sarah found the texts, my name glowing on his screen like an indictment, he'd chosen silence. For the boys, he'd whispered over the phone, voice shattering. I'd hung up, driven west until the plains blurred into desert, chasing horizons that never led back to him. But in this sterile limbo, the walls closed in. What do you want? Ethan? Absolution? A do-over? My voice cracked, betraying the boy who'd once believed in second chances. Turned, eyes fierce in the half-light. Always you. But I won't beg. Wyatt. Not unless you say the word. The nurse bustled in then. All starch deficiency, checking vitals and murmuring about pain meds. Ethan stepped back into shadow, a specter again, but his gaze held mine like an anchor. As she left, the door clicking shut, the silence stretched taut. "Tell me a story," I said suddenly, the words slipping out like a plea. "Like you used to." "About that summer in the Keys." He paused, then sank back into the chair, a ghost of a smile tugging his lips. "All right. Remember the conch shack on Key Largo? Salt air thick as regret. Waves crashing like they were applauding our foolishness. And just like that, two of the deal. 28 and reckless. Road tripping south in his beat-up Ford. Windows down. Springsteen blasting Thunder Road as we crossed state lines. We'd parked on that white sand beach at dusk. Toes in the surf. His arm around my shoulders like it belonged there. "You tasted like key lime pie and freedom," he murmured now, voice dropping to that husky timbre that always undid me. "We swam naked under the moon. Wyatt. Laughed till our sides hurt. I thought that was forever. It wasn't. But in the retelling, with his hand finding mine again, tentative as a first touch, the hospital faded. For a moment, it was just us, two men against the American sprawl, daring to dream in the spaces between what was and what could be. Dawn crept in slow, painting the blinds in hesitant gold. Ethan hadn't slept. I could see it in the slump of his shoulders, the way he nursed a styrofoam coffee like it was holy water. "Go home," I muttered, hating the plea in it. "The boys need you." He shook his head, stubborn as the oak out back of his farmhouse. "They're with Sarah's folks. And home. Home's wherever you are. Wyatt. Always has been." The doctor came at 8, clipboard in hand, declaring me fit for discharge with a script for oxycodone and a warning about driving. Ethan hovered like a sentinel, signing forms, fetching my genes from the lost and miraculously unscathed, though the leather jacket was a shredded memory. As we shuffled to the elevator, his arm around my waist for support, the contact sparked something dangerous: heat, hunger, the kind that had once led to frantic unbuttonings in truck stop bathrooms. The November wind bit like judgment, whipping fallen leaves across the Urbe. His patrol car idled curbside, lights off but presence screaming authority. "I'll drive you to your place," he said, opening the passenger door with that old chivalry. My truck. The words tasted bitter. The wreck was totaled, hauled to some impound lot like a discarded life. Gone. But you're not. He guided me in, buckling the seatbelt with fingers that lingered too long on my hip. The drive to Wicker Park was a minefield of silences. The city awakening around us, baristas flipping signs to "open," joggers pounding pavement in fluorescent gear. The L clattering overhead like urban thunder. My loft loomed on Damon Avenue. A converted warehouse with exposed beams and walls papered in my prints, faded carnivals in Gary, Indiana, rusted silos under prairie skies, a close-up of Ethan's hand on his steering wheel, veins like rivers I'd traced with my tongue. He helped me up the stairs, breath steady despite my weight against him. Inside, the air was stale, mail piled like accusations on the kitchen island. I collapsed onto the leather couch, the one we'd christened with spilled wine and whispered confessions, while he rummaged for coffee filters. "Sit," I said, patting the cushion beside me. He did, handing over a mug that steamed with black brew, 2 sugars, just how I liked it. Our knees brushed. Electric. "Tell me about the last 2 years," he prompted, eyes searching mine like lost keys. Except the bitterness grounding me. Chaste stories. Tulsa roughnecks fighting for overtime. Flint families rationing water like it's gold. Shot a series on queer kids in rural Ohio, closeted lives. Wyatt style. A ghost laugh escaped. Sold enough to keep the lights on. Dated a bartender in Detroit once. Lasted 3 weeks. His face shadowed. And you? Still sketching those barns in your notebook? Every night. It was true, my Moleskine overflowed with pencil strokes of his silhouette against cornfields. Notes scrawled in margins. What if we ran? What if we stayed? He reached for the book on the coffee table. Flipping to a dog-eared page. A sketch of us on that Key Largo beach. Waves curling at our feet. This. It's us. Real. Yeah. My throat tightened. Until it wasn't. The dam cracked then. Words tumbled, his side. Anyway. How Sarah's forgiveness had soured into resentment. Nights he'd patrol empty county roads replaying our last fight. Me yelling in that Joplin motel. Choose. Ethan. Me or the lie. Frozen. Whispering. I can't lose them. The divorce papers. Inked in August. The boy's confusion melting into reluctant acceptance. I drove straight here when I heard, he confessed. Screw the job. Screw everything. You're my North Star. Wyatt. I wanted to believe him. Good. How I did. But trust is a fragile thing. Shattered once and pieced with crazy glue that never quite holds. Prove it, I challenged. Voice barely above the traffic hum outside. Stay tonight. No ghosts. Just us. His answer was a kiss, slow, searing, tasting of coffee and salt. It started tentative, lips brushing like apologies, then deepened, his hand cupping my neck, pulling me into the vortex. Pain forgotten, I arched into him, fingers tangling in his hair, the world narrowing to the press of his chest, the hitch in his breath. We moved to the bedroom in a tangle of limbs and shed clothes, the afternoon light slanting through blinds like benediction. He was gentle with my bruises, mapping them with lips and murmurs. I'm sorry, darling. So damn sorry, until urgency overtook, bodies reuniting in a rhythm we'd never lost. It wasn't just sex, it was reclamation. Each thrust a vow. Each gasp of forgiveness. We lay spent, his head on my chest, heartbeat syncing with mine. I love you, he whispered into the dusk, the words we'd danced around for years. But I couldn't say it back. Not yet. The specter of betrayal lingered, a shadow in the corner. We'll see, was all I managed, tracing the scar on his shoulder. Night fell soft, city lights twinkling like distant fires. He cooked spaghetti from my bare pantry, sauce doctored with herbs he'd borrowed from the corner bodega. We ate on the fire escape, legs dangling over the alley, passing a beer back and forth, talking in circles, the boys' soccer games he'd missed, my exhibit in Milwaukee that sold out. Laughter crept in. Tentative. Then full-throated, echoing off brick walls. But as stars pricked the smoggy sky, doubt gnawed. What if this was temporary? What if Sarah called? Or duty pulled him back? Ethan, I said. A small. What happens when the sun comes up? He pulled me close. Chin on my head. We build from here. Day by day. No more running. I wanted to trust it. Leaned into his warmth, Let sleep claim me there under the chill. But dreams twisted, flashing taillights, his truck vanishing into fog, a child's cry piercing the dark. Morning brought reality's bite. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, dispatch from the photo agency. A gig in New Orleans. Hurricane aftermath. 2 weeks, the email read. Leave tomorrow. Ethan stirred beside me, squinting at the screen. Go. Chase your stories. I'll hold the fort here, talk to the lawyers. Get the house sorted. And us. The question hung. Fragile as frost. Us is solid. He kissed my temple. But his eyes flickered, something unspoken. A hesitation I'd learned to dread. I packed that day in a haze. Camera bag slung over my shoulder like armor. He drove me to O'Hare. Hand on my thigh the whole way. Radio tuned low to NPR's Morning Woes. At the terminal, we lingered in a goodbye that stretched, his fingers lingering on my collarbone. Call me, he said, voice rough. Every night, I echoed, boarding with a heart too full to burst. The flight south was turbulence incarnate, mirroring the storm inside. New Orleans welcomed me with humid arms, bayous choked with debris, families sifting through flood-ravaged homes. I shot for days, resilient faces etched with loss, hands rebuilding what nature stole. It grounded me. The work, a reminder that love, like this city, rose from ruins. But, though, were Ethan's. Texts at dusk, boys asked about you. Told you're a hero with a camera. Calls after midnight, his voice a bomb. Recounting farm chores. Divorce mediations laced with Sarah's barbs. She knows it's over, he'd say. For good. I believed him. Almost. Until the 10th night, when the line crackled, and a woman's voice cut Sarah, sobbing. Ethan? The boys. Accident on the way to school. Come home. Silence swallowed the miles. Wyatt, he finally choked. Go. The word was ash. Family first. He hung up, and I stared at the peeling wallpaper of my French Quarter B&B. The quarters jazz drifting like mockery. Family first. The betrayal wasn't new. But this time, it carved deeper, knowing he'd choose again. Even as he claimed me. I finished the assignment in a numb blur. Images sharp but soul vacant. Back in Chicago 2 weeks later, the loft echoed empty. No Ethan waiting with coffee. Texts unanswered. Calls to voicemail, in the thick of it. Love you. Love you. The phrase mocked from the screen. I drowned it in whiskey at the local dive. The one with the dartboard scarred like my heart. That's where Riley found me, bartender with ink-sleeved arms and a grin that promised forgetfulness. Rough night? He asked, sliding a shot my way. Rough life. We talked till closing. His laugh a distraction. His touch later in my cab a spark. Woke tangled in his sheets. Regret immediate. Ethan's ghost in the mirror's reflection. The confrontation came unbidden. A week of radio silence shattering when my door pounded at 2 a.m. Disheveled. Reeking of hospital antiseptic and despair. The boys. They're okay. Busted arms. Stitches. But okay. Sarah's a wreck. I stepped aside, letting him in. The air thick with unsaid accusations. And you? Hero daddy again. He flinched, collapsing onto the couch. It wasn't quite. I drove through the night after the call. Held him while the docs set bones. But every second, it was you I needed. Liar. The word exploded, fueled by bourbon and betrayal. I paced, voice rising. You vanished. Finn. While I sat here, picturing you in her arms, whispering comforts, his eyes flashed fire. But she's the mother of my kids, but you're the one I dream of, the one I'd burn it all for. Words, I shouted, hurling the moleskine at his feet, pages fluttering like wounded birds. You say, love, but act like it's a side gig. I can't. He surged up, grabbing my arms, pinning me to the wall with that deputy's strength. Then make me prove it. Right now. Tell me to walk, and I will. But if you want this, then fight for it with me. Breath mingled, chest heaving. The room pulsed with the city's undercurrent, horns blaring distant like war cries. I searched his face, the crinkles from sun and sorrow, the lips I'd mapped 1,000 times. I want you, I admitted, voice breaking. But I'm terrified. He kissed me then, fierce and forgiving, hands roaming like rediscovery. We stumbled to bed, urgency laced with tenderness, bodies affirming what words couldn't. Afterward, sweat slick and spent, he held me close. I'm selling the farm. Moving here. Full-time. No more halves. The promise hung, fragile but fierce. Don found us planning, his badge transferring to Chicago PD. My next gig flexible enough for weekends upstate. But shadows lingered, Sarah's custody battles, the boy's confusion, the world's unyielding gaze on two men daring to claim joy. Weeks blurred into a tentative rhythm. Ethan crashed at my loft, his duffel in the corner like a declaration. We cooked together, burnt steaks redeemed with laughter, walked the lakefront at twilight, hands brushing in coded affection. He met my editor over beers, charmed the grizzled vet with tales of cornfield stakeouts. I visited the boys once. Under Sarah's wary eye, little Jack, 7 and gap-toothed, sketched me a badge with crayons, declaring, Uncle Wyatt catches bad guys with pictures. It wasn't perfect. Fights flared, his late shifts pulling him away. My road trips breeding paranoia. One night, after a bar spat with a drunk heckler slurring, faggots, Ethan punched first. Badge be damned. We yelled in the car ride home. Accusations flying. You think I want this spotlight? Then why stay in the closet with your precinct buddies? But mornings mended. Coffee and quiet apologies. His head in my lap as I read aloud from Kerouac, chasing that on-the-road freedom we'd tasted young. The high tide came in spring. Cherry blossoms dusting Wicker Park like confetti. Ethan proposed, not with rings, but a key to a brownstone in Logan Square. 2 bedrooms for when the boys visited. A dark room in the basement for my prints. Our start, he said, on one knee in the loft, eyes shining like Lake Michigan at noon. Marry me, Wyatt. Not for show. For us. Tears blurred him, hot and unashamed. Yes, I choked, pulling him up into a kiss that tasted like forever. The wedding was small, City Hall, with my sister from Milwaukee as witness. His partner from the force cracking jokes to ease the nerves. Vows exchanged in a sunlit office. Simple bands glinting like vows kept. That night, we danced in the kitchen to Coltrane, bodies swaying slow, the boys' artwork taped to the fridge like talismans. But life, that American Odyssey, doesn't end neat. 6 months in, Sarah called, reconciliation with a new man, custody amicable. The boys thrived, splitting weeks between homes, calling us both Dad with a kid's easy grace. Ethan's precinct ribbed him gentle, pride flags fluttering come June. Yet doubt whispered in quiet hours. My photos won a Pulitzer, queer lives in the heartland. Inspired by him, but the spotlight burned. Headlines dredging our past, deputies secret, from closet to aisle. Trolls online. Whispers at his precinct. One night, after a shift gone sour, a shooting, a kid lost, he came home hollow-eyed. What if I can't protect you from this? I held him then. Fear says he'd held me in that hospital room. We protect each other. That's the deal. The climax crashed unbidden. A humid July eve. Dispatch crackled over dinner. Active shooter at a pride event downtown. The one we'd planned to attend. Ethan geared up, kissing me hard, back by 10, and vanished into the fray. Hours stretched eternal. TV flickering horrors, rainbow flags trampled, sirens wailing. My phone stayed silent. At midnight, the knock came, not him, but his captain, face carved grim. White. He took a round. Vest caught most? But surgery. The drive to Northwestern was a blur. Heart hammering louder than the horns. Our waiting room. Sarah there already, awkward solidarity in shared vigil. He fought for this, she said softly, squeezing my hand. For you. Hours bled into dawn. Then, the doctor, stable. Grazed the shoulder, lost blood. But he'll pull through. Relief buckled me. Sobs racking silent. In recovery, Ethan stirred, eyes finding mine first. Hey, hero, he rasped, fingers seeking. You scared the shit out of me. Tears fell free, splashing his gown. Worth it. For them. For us. His grip tightened. Love you, Wyatt. Named it. Finally. The room warmed. Monitors beeping benediction. Said. Chicago stirred, LGBTQ flags at half-mast. But resilient, like us. We healed together, PT sessions laced with banter. My camera capturing his scars like badges of survival. A year on, the brownstone thrives, boys' laughter echoing. My darkroom yielding prints of our patchwork life. Ethan in uniform. Arm around Jack at a Cubs game, us on the lakefront. Hands clasped open. Betrayals faded to footnotes. Conflicts to character. It turns out, isn't a destination but a daily defiance. 2 men. American as apple pie and backroads. Daring to name it loud. Every night, he sits beside me. Not in a hospital bed, but in the quiet of our home. And in his eyes, I see the horizon we chased, endless. Us.